The topic is called as interpretation of key ideas, right? And you did the first passes one, and that you have read. So, what do you think that what this passage is all about? Yes. Sorry. Investment, bitcoins. Okay. So, what do you think that? What is the purpose of our context? Discusses the Bitcoin's popularity. Well, if you look into the text, what do we find out? The passage explores how and why Bitcoin has gained massive popularity. Yes, isn't it? So, because if you look at the text from the top to the till end, we draw nothing but it's given about Bitcoin, right? So it's a positive side, it's negative side, it's comparison, right? How it gains popularity. So discussing not just its financial aspects, but the deeper regions. What are the deeper regions? Such as social mistrust, right? So in the human institutions, so social mistrust in what? Human institutions, right? Banks, right? Or you talk about that other financial areas, and you also find out that what they grow the fact. These people who do not believe in the financial institution, they believe in what? Technology, isn't it? So it is not trying to introduce Bitcoin for the first time, right? If you read the text, you would find out that it is not introducing the Bitcoin for the first time. So it compares it with, you can say that other currency, right? You also find out it also gives investment advice, right? Now in that case, once we read the passage, we draw these are the things which are provided in the reading comprehension one. So here, if we talk about the purpose of the context, we can understand that the context is called as a Bitcoin's rising values, global media attention, and distrust in what? Traditional finances, isn't it? Those are the things which are called as a context. And the purpose of authors pointing about the context is to nothing but indicating about Bitcoin's rise, right? So Bitcoin's rise really means, and what it says about society's changing values, and you can say trust system, right? That's what is the purpose that we can find out. Besides that, the second one which we also draw, what is that? The second one is called as identifying purpose of the author in giving specific details. When we talk about identifying purpose of the author in giving specific details in the text, we can find out the author gives specific examples, right? What are the examples you would find out? Like Amazon's example. Even it also shows Bitcoin's fast value growth. Like you can say, the author stated about 39 cents to $18,000, isn't it? That is one of the line given. That proves nothing but that what? How Bitcoin is in a bubble. Yes. When we talk about bubble, the meaning of bubble is called as rapidly growing, rising its value, isn't it? So second thing is called as the author also mentioned the financial crisis of 2008, isn't it? In the year of 2008, the author stated about the financial crisis that occurs. So why did the author mention this financial crisis that occurred in the year of 2008? Now because the author wanted to explain why people lost trust in banks, right? Because certain mistakes that the financial institutions do, right, for which we start losing the faith. Stated about Netscape. So why did the author state about Amazon and Netscape? So the author wanted to point out to compare what, that how tech bubbles and how some means lead to invest and long last. Yes. Isn't it? So that is what the point the author uses here, that when he talks about Netscape and Amazon, to compare these bubbles and how some bubbles nothing but invested and long last, right? Still today also. Isn't it? Now, next, we also find out the author explains blockchain. Now, what do you mean by blockchain? When we talk about the blockchain, we can find out the authors show that unique technology that works behind the Bitcoin, right? And its independence from governments. That is what also it is stated. So here you can find out these are the specific examples through which the author's purpose was to give these details the deeper idea that Bitcoin is more than hype. It's not hype, it's more than hype, right? So it reflects a shift in how people think about money and trust. People think about what? Money and trust. Now this is what known as what? Identifying the purpose when you read any of the text, right? So text of the author, and giving specific details which you need to paraphrase and understand why they have been provided. So what does the author want to convey by giving these specific details, right? So this is the second one. Then the third one is called as identifying specific context-based meaning. Right. The first one we understood is known as identifying the purpose of the context. Right. Second is known as what? That called as identifying purpose of the author in giving specific details. Then third is called as identifying specific or context-based meaning. Here it is called as a meaning. You find out examples. Now you need to also find out the meaning of it. Let's say that if you talk about bubble. When you say that bubble, what do you mean by that? Given in the first line. Bubble का मतलब क्या होता है? Yes, bubble का मतलब क्या होता है? What do you mean by bubble? I told you just some time before. Rising. It's called as a rising, right? The way it rises, that's the way it crashes. Have you ever seen the bubble on the water? Right? You would find out the way it bubbles, that the same way it crashes also. Isn't it? So here the author when mentions the term called as a bubble, so the author wanted to point out a situation where prices rise rapidly, right? So, but may crash soon, right? So that's why the author want to point out a kind of doubts in the reader's mind. The way Bitcoin rises, right, may crash soon. That is what the author may present here. So second is called as the word which is called as Senanigans. Now what is that Senanigans? Senanigans is the word which is known as a mistrust, right? Mistrust or dishonest. Mistrust or dishonest and mistrust or dishonest actions referring to how banks and institutions do or behave, right or not? So here the word shenanigans is used to point out the banks and the institutions who do the financial transaction, right? So the author also stated about shared hallucination. The word called as shared hallucination. So something everyone believes in, even if it has no physical, that called as a basis. Like the idea of money having value. Like the idea of money having value. So beside that, you also find out another line that called as in code we trust. In code we trust. In code we trust means what? Now, like you said that God we trust. So likewise, it shows the shift in faith from humans to computer systems. Right. Now here, in code we trust means called as we trust to the computer, not to the humans. Right. Then that is what known as a specific or context-based meaning. When you come across these are the words or phrases, you need to draw the meaning on the basis of the text. Fine. Then fourth one is called as what? Drawing inference based on the author's position. You need to draw the inference. When we talk about draw the inference on the basis of the author's position or opinion, in this we can infer that what? After reading the text, that the author does not, blindly praise bitcoins. The author does not blindly praise bitcoins. So what the author does here? So the author sees the part of a bigger movement. The author sees what? The bigger movement here, because the author understands that what is the outcome people will get when they use the bitcoins. Right? Second is called as the author also discusses the popularity of Bitcoin. It's more about what? Philosophical and psychological shifts. Right? So where the author pointed, people trust code than just money making. Right? People trust on what? Technology than just code making. Imagine that earlier we used to go bank. Why? To deposit money or to withdraw money. But now we don't do all such kind of things. Right? So we simply transfer one bank to the other bank through our phone pay, Google Pay, in all such kind of a digital technology. Even we draw the money, right? Or we also send to another's account through the technology. We don't need to go to bank, right? So that's what is called as one of the fact you can see. So that's what indicating we trust code or we trust technology. So the author, beside all these things, author puts a caution. Caution means what? Careful note. Careful note about what? Bitcoin being unstable. Maybe people use Bitcoin, right? But Bitcoin may be unstable, but there is a hopeful of what? Openness that it may be the start of something revolutionary. So people will use Bitcoin or not. Just like, early tech bubbles. Just like early tech bubbles means like Amazon, like Netscape. So people will also use Bitcoins more. Clear? So that is what known as the kind of analysis. When you read the passage, we need to understand that what? The title said interpretation of key ideas, which means it tries to tell that when you read the text, you need to understand the author's purpose or writing this context. So you also need to understand the author's purpose or specific context, right? The specific details the author has put. Third is called as means one has to also understand identifying the specific or context-based meaning and drawing inference based on the author's position or author's opinion. Clear my point? Now let me take you towards this text, tone, language and setting. If I talk about the tone of the passage, what do I find out? The tone of the text is analytical. What is that? Analytical. You can say analytical, reflective and skeptical, but open-mindedness. These are the kind of a tone you can draw. Analytical, thereafter reflective, skeptical, but open-mindedness. How you can call it analytical? Because the author explores the rise of Bitcoin with the logical examples, isn't it? Second is called as a reflective. So the author thinks deeply about how society is shifting trust from the humans to machine, right? That is why it is reflective. Third is called as the author stated skeptical but open-mindedness. So when the author questions Bitcoin's value, right? So the author also acknowledging it might be a what? It might be a sign of big change, isn't it? Therefore, you can consider means telling analytical, reflective, then after open-minded and skeptical. The author is analyzing the text very clearly and make the readers to think of it. Right. Second, we talk about language also. What kind of a language that the author uses means in the text. Obviously, the language that are used in this particular text is a formal, right? Formal and you can say thoughtful. The author put some of the technical terms like blockchain, then after bubble, decentralized ledger, and speculation, which are explained in context, right? So the author also uses what figurative comparisons like oceans swells. There is a term called as oceans swells, shared hallucination. So why? Now to make abstract ideas to make the reader easier to understand. Clear? Then second is called as what kind of a language, yeah, that's what I pointed. Third is called as a setting. What kind of a setting the author used here? Obviously, subject or setting, we can talk about the global financial and technological world after the 2008 crisis. It also talk about the focus on what public reaction to Bitcoin's rise in value, especially as trust in human-run institutions like banks, and they have been weakened in this context. And last, you would find out the backdrop that the author point out in this, a world that increasingly run by machines and code. Machines and code. Why? Because it suggests a shift in how we trust and use technology. Isn't it? So that's how the author discusses the whole text, stating about the dramatic rise of Bitcoin and examines whether it is simply a financial bubble driven by people's greed or something more significant, more important. The text argues that Bitcoin reflects a broader social shift. People are moving their trust away from flawed human institutions and toward technology and you can say that a computer code. Though Bitcoin has flaws, the point stated that Bitcoin may signal the beginning of a bigger transformation in how we handle trust, value, and money. Isn't it? That's what the whole text is all about. Now, you have 5 questions given you on the basis of the text. Can you answer that? The first question, identify or identifying purpose of the author in giving specific details. Yeah, Rasanjit. See, the primary purpose of the passage is to analyze the reasons for the popularity of Bitcoin. Absolutely, yes. If you see that A, B, and D, A, which is stated, introduce readers to a comparatively unknown instrument of investment. Introduce readers to a comparatively relative instrument of investment. So the passage is not about that introducing something to, investment purpose. Right? The author is telling about Bitcoin and how that Bitcoin is rising, its popularity. So A is eliminated. Second, explain the difference between Bitcoin and regular currency. Though the author discusses the comparison between Bitcoins and other currencies, but that cannot be called as a primary purpose of the passage. Then D, advice against the use of Bitcoin for investment purpose. So if you look into the D is stated advice against. Against what? The use of Bitcoin for investment purpose. So here throughout the passage, the author talks about positive and negative, but the author doesn't give the advice people to use Bitcoin, not to use Bitcoins. Isn't it? So this is again called as a kind of a mistrust, right? So C is the most appropriate here. I hope you are getting it. Now coming to the second one, all of the following statements are true except. All of the following statements are true except. It means we need to find out on one option that is not true. Right. So if you see that there is a phenomenal growth in the value of Bitcoin in recent years. Yes. Right. So that can be drawn from the text. So because it is stated about growth in the value of Bitcoin. Right. So then D said, while Bitcoin may not help purchase things, it may help us to participate in trading wealth. Right? Now, this is also again stated that why Bitcoin is used, right? So, it may not help purchasing things, it may help us to participate in trading wealth. Like the blockchain is used. Then C, humans' mismanagement of finances resulting in a financial crisis that has inspired the development of Bitcoin. The author also stated about that there is a crisis also, right? So B, the potential bubble of Bitcoin is quite different from the 1990 tech bubble. Is it true or false? It is not true. Why? Because the potential bubble of Bitcoin is not different from 1990s tech bubble, because 1990s tech bubble also proceed and it continues till today, similar to that bubble, you can say that Bitcoin bubble. It is given in a third paragraph, right? Right. So hence option B will be the most appropriate. Coming to the next one. Question number 3. Based on this extract, the author would support which one of the following views? Based on this extract, the author would support which one of the following views? So people's dependence on technology is not justified. It is not the information author supports. Right? It doesn't the sentence that the author supports. B, when people don't trust human intention, they try to depend on technology that is believed to be not making any mistake, infallible. Right? So this is the appropriate answer, because we find out throughout the text, the author stated about that due to the humans fallible or humans flaw, people start believing to the technology. Isn't it? So that's why B is correct. Look at the C and D. Any currency released by a sovereign government has absolute safety in comparison with Bitcoin. Right. Now this one is not the answer. We are not talking about Bitcoin's comparison with any currency. Right. It is also stated that has absolutely safety in comparison with Bitcoin. Right. So even if the author also said that Bitcoin may crash. Right. So in that case, B cannot be called as, C cannot be called as supporting information. D, due to its inherent risk, Bitcoin is not a good tool for wealth creation process. Again, this is what also the author doesn't support. The author clearly supports how throughout the passage, author stated about Bitcoin's popularity. Then after, the author also stated about what how people start believing to the technology. So and going away from the humans and institutions and banks. So B would be the most appropriate here. Let's go with the question number 4. In paragraph 3, the author provides the example of what? Amazon. Why? To substantiate the view that people's estimation of the value of a brand may be proven wrong in the long run. Right? So look at that. Paragraph 3, the author provides the example of Amazon and Netscape to substantiate the view that what people believe, right, or people's value of what? Of a brand possibly be proven wrong in the long run. Right? So if they believe that what something is running good and it will also continue in the future better, so that may be wrong. Or if they find out that it cannot run long, there is also means kind of a that can be also proven wrong. D and A, B, D, yeah. If you look at the A, even at current prices, the brand of Amazon is surely overvalued. Even at current price, the brand of Amazon is surely overvalued. Now, if you talk about Amazon is overvalued, that may happen, but that may also come into the crisis, right? So, that may be come as a means wrong, and that make the people wrong. So the author is not talking about brand also, right? Because it is stated that even at current price, the brand of Amazon is surely overvalued. The author doesn't talk about the brand. The author talks about means if it is a brand also, that brand can proven wrong, right? So B, a Bitcoin bubble is likely to